Oh shit, I just got nervous.
It's funny because that's what you said last time.
That was mean. Again, hey. I'm going to pour myself some whiskey.
There we go.
To make myself feel better.
That's a good idea. Well, hey, Kevin. Welcome to the Unsuccessful Entrepreneur Podcast. What are we drinking?
Some Michter's.
Michter's. That sounds nice.
I'm very thankful that I learned how to pronounce this correctly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right out the gate.
We made it almost the whole podcast last time without the dogs barking.
This time we made it 18 seconds in. We're pouring heavy today, boys.
We had a few last time, so
that's a good point. And by the way, mine melted more because I had to hold it in my hand because you didn't give me a coaster. That's why my eyes melted. Cheers.
Oh. I thought you were looking for like a coaster.
Sure wasn't. All right. Well, here's to episode 2. This is great B-roll for you, Ryan. Oh, that's good.
I'm glad we're starting out so smoothly.
Yeah.
We really worked out the kinks.
I feel like this is a really solid start for it. I don't know. That's good, though. I like the Michter's. Yeah. Did you call it Michter's? Because I definitely did.
Luckily, I didn't have to say it out loud until I heard someone else say it.
That's good. Yeah. Because you definitely would think like, oh, that's Michter's. But nope, it's not. It's Michter's.
It is. Yeah. When you really look at it.
Typically how words work.
Yep. Being rude right off the bat.
I'm sorry. I'm feeling feisty.
You are.
Yeah. We
had a stressful day.
Dude, man. That event, we did a OU event where it was Logan and I, and we set up at Camp Crimson. Yeah, that's what it's called. And it's an OU event. Super cool event, but love going there. We've gone there 2 years in a row now. Went last year and this year. But the way that it's set up is they just line some vendors up in a hallway and essentially take every new OU freshman and walk them through it. And so we were there for 8.5 hours. And then we talked to because the OU class this year is 4,700 freshmen. So not all of them were there, but I would be willing to bet we talked to 4,000 people.
Yeah. Your brain seemed pretty melted after that. Dude, I saw you on Saturday night.
There was not much left. There was not much left at all. You can only have the exact same conversation 4,000 times before it's just done.
Dude, that is... You kind of underestimate how talking to that many people, it wears on you. It's your emotional effort wears out by the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about stuff like that pretty frequently too, especially when we're hiring people as this is not the most physically demanding job you've ever had, but it's up there as your most demanding job you've maybe ever had. With, talking to people, but on top of talking to people, problem solving, critical thinking, how many times people come in and they're like, hey, I think I need this, or a classic one is typically weight loss. People come in for weight loss all the time and they're like, cool, I want a weight loss product. And I'm like, okay, well, why are we struggling with weight loss? What is it? Are we overeating? Are we emotionally eating, which is a whole nother box to open up, because then it's what are cravings like? Are we doing things outside to boost neurotransmitters? Are we doing things that can kind of aid in your ability to not have cravings? And then it's on top of that, it's why are we struggling? Is it time? Is it energy? Is it whatever? And it's you have to sit there and you almost have to to truly help somebody, you have to dissect their entire their life right now, their current, what they're doing.
And to me, that's only half the battle too, is figuring out what's going to work best for them. But then the second half of that is explaining to them, this is why we think this product lineup is going to work best for you. Yeah. And here's how to work it into your diet, your lifestyle, or your training, and convince them that this is how it's going to work best, and have not even just convince them, but have them on the same page and truly understand, so that they take it more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, when I have those conversations, I think they typically go well, because you're kind of personally and emotionally connecting to somebody, especially if they're an emotional emotional eater, and kind of getting them the information to allow them to understand like why their brain is doing what it's doing and why this is so difficult. And so if I have somebody who, you know, is eating once a day and they're a super emotional eater and they just like binge from cravings or whatever, it's like, well, I don't necessarily want to throw you a thermo that's got like some huge appetite suppressant in it. Like I need you to eat. Like I want you to eat more than what you're eating now. Killing your appetite's not going to help that. So it's definitely back to what we were talking about. It's definitely like the critical thinking aspect of it is like, it's really underrated of like, you can work a 6, 8, 10, 12 hour shift at Triad and go home and just be like, I'm cooked. I got nothing, you know?
There's days I always know it's the most extreme days where I'm emotionally wearing out and I don't even get any time to take any caffeine, where it's it's, you know, several hours in and I'm like, I have not stopped talking to people for 3 straight hours, which that's not even the most extreme. And then I go another 6 hours where I'm like, I needed caffeine 6 hours ago.
Right. And the caffeine wouldn't have done anything anyway.
And I just don't even have time to mix a pre-workout or grab an energy drink or anything.
I mean, that's how the event was that Logan and I were at. I mean, like, it's literally like did them in phases, but like you look up and where we were positioned, we could kind of see the line. And at any given moment, you'd look up and there'd be 400. Kevin just spilled on himself for anybody not watching the video.
If you're listening and not watching, that's a lie.
But that was good. That was funny. But we could see the line. And so, you know, like you're kind of talking about, you know, you're like, I needed this hours ago. And it's like, you're talking to somebody, having a conversation, and we're having good conversations. Like, don't get me wrong. We're giving what we can, but you like look up and there's 400 people behind them. And you're like, all right, like buckle up, let's keep going. Like, and you're like, don't know when this is going to end. So
yeah.
Wahoo.
I think there's something to having someone like face to face with you though. That's like, I can't just mentally check out.
It's easier.
I have to kind of keep it going. But yeah, you get to the end of the day and you push yourself further than you realized you could. And brain is melted.
Dude, for real. Sorry if my voice is a little scratchy. I was listening to My Chemical Romance on the way here. I was really getting into it. So I've realized that about halfway through the album that I was like, I've been screaming.
Oh, what album?
I don't remember. The one with Helena on it. And Not Okay. It's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah. I think that came out. I remember listening to that album on a CD player with like headphones. We'd go back in, this was like a freshman in high school. I don't know, but we'd go to this like place that somebody had like, was a business. It's called GameCore. And you'd go in there and it was just like lined with like monitors and like Xboxes. And they just had like LAN games and like online and stuff like that. And everybody just played like Halo and whatever. And they just sold like Mountain Dew and Doritos at the counter, like, and energy drinks. And I remember it was like, I don't remember what it cost or anything. I was young, but like, I just remember we'd go like a buddy of mine and we would go and like just play video games for hours, and I'd just be like, my headphones, I'm like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. You know, and it's playing heads, just really getting into it.
That sounds like a good time.
It honestly was. Like, thinking back, I want to go back to that. That was cool.
Yeah. We could have a day where we just do that.
We could get a building. Buy a bunch of monitors, a bunch of Xbox 360s probably.
Yeah.
And
not retro, just old. Yeah.
That's me.
Xbox 360 is old now, right?
Yeah, I think so. Brian?
I mean, I had one growing up.
Yeah.
So I have no clue where they're at now, though.
Maybe that means you're old, though.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll turn 26 in a few days. So.
Yeah.
26, over the hill.
Yeah, that's where your testosterone starts to dip.
Oh, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, good old low T Ryan. Any comments? No? Okay. No, yeah, I think they definitely are. But I mean, I remember like original Xbox and like, I don't know, I had a PlayStation, all that kind of stuff. It was high school in the, you know, early mid 2000s.
We used to do that. we would get some physical exercise. By that, I mean, we would go skateboard.
Nice.
Go skate during the day, like our, morning or, late afternoon. And then me and my friends would go back to my parents' house and play Halo in the basement.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. Kevin was a very angsty teenager, if you can't tell. My Chemical Romance, skateboards, Xbox, yelling at his parents, probably.
Shut up, Mom! I don't think I was that kind of kid.
No, I don't see it.
My parents could vouch for me on that.
Yeah. You're skinny. I was skinny. We were little ones, man. Graduated high school at 172 pounds. I do not weigh that currently.
Probably not much more after that.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
I went into my senior year at this height, which I'm like just shy of 6'2".
Yeah.
Good shoes. I'm 6'2". And so this height, this frame at 155 pounds.
Yeah. I was 6'4", 172 pounds.
Yeah. When I first started hitting the gym, I got nicknamed the Machinist. I was that skinny.
Oh, nice.
Luckily, I hadn't seen that movie. Yeah. Luckily, I hadn't seen that movie at that time.
Or it would have really hurt your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. I learned about it later and it hurt my feelings.
Yeah, that's all right. He became Batman, so
that's true. And Dick Cheney.
He did become Dick Cheney also. Yeah, that's correct. There's a little movie trivia for you guys. So one of the most common questions that we've gotten recently when it comes to this is, why did we pick Unsuccessful Entrepreneur podcast? So, Kevin? Yeah.
For those that follow me on Instagram, Facebook, I usually throw that hashtag at the end of one of my posts that I make every week. I usually try and make a business related post. And I started doing that, I think 4 years ago.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. It was a little after partners had left and I was on my own, and I was listening to a lot of other business people, successful people that I looked up to, and, talking about how they got to the point that they're at. And a lot of them would talk about the struggles that they had early on and all the things they went through and all the things that they had to do to get to the point, and how it's quite a bit harder than a lot of people anticipate. And I felt like I was in the position that they were talking about that they used to be in. It's like, man, you guys are telling stories of what I'm doing real time.
You're telling stories of my current life.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I hope to be successful one day, but right now I am going through the struggles. So that's where I started to make posts about, again, a little bit more real time of, the day-to-day things that I go through, and I could give maybe a little bit more firsthand accounts of things that I was going through. So I've been making those posts. And I think from the time I started using that hashtag, I think pretty much right off the bat, and have used it ever since. I haven't changed it. There were some people that weren't a huge fan. They thought it was kind of negative self-talk and weren't, they encouraged me to change the hashtag on it. But I also had a lot of people that were also very for it. Like I talked to Alyssa about it at one point, changing it. And I sound better this way.
Turns out, put your face near the microphone.
So I talked to Alyssa about it. I actually talked to a few different people about changing the hashtag. And there were certain people that were very against me changing the hashtag. There was, you can't change that. It actually fits really well. And I thought it fit really well too, because it's one of those that, we were going through those struggles. And
I didn't want you to change it. I liked it. I like it now, obviously.
Thank you. But to this day, I think the reason that it's really been kept is because we still honestly go through those struggles on a day-to-day basis. It never really gets that much easier. And it's not necessarily a whole lot harder, but it's not necessarily a whole lot easier. It's just a little different from, when it was a time where, we had one employee, I wasn't paying myself.
Things aren't hanging by a thread like they were before as much, but I always liked it because I think it's very real. I think part of the thing that you would do in those posts is be like, hey, with social media and the way things are anymore, everyone just projects this constantly like positive, like, look how good everything is. Like, oh, I've, not to be cliche, but like the people posting pictures in front of a Range Rover or whatever, it's like, oh, look at this thing I'm trying to project as being like, I'm perpetually successful no matter what I do. And it's like, look how great I'm doing right now. I always really liked it because I thought you were being like, hey, by the way, we struggle. Like, this is not always easy. There's been plenty of situations that I'm sure we'll get into either this time or soon in the future in the podcast of like, hey, something goes slightly different for us. Triad's maybe not around. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we had plenty of situations that by, the skin of our teeth and the grace of God that, something worked out the way that it worked out that kind of allowed us to keep going. Obviously we always had like a go for it, ride or die, like kind of mentality, but it's also one of those things like where we had to, if it weren't for those things, that would have been really, really difficult, whether it's ordering products too early or, products not even getting sent to us when they're supposed to, and all these different things that like, I tell even the stories in the store sometimes when people talk about it, because I think we're super blessed to be in a situation now where people do look at Triad, I think more so than we do, as like a successful, super successful business, right? And it's like, sure, we're very happy with the progress that has happened within the company and where it's headed, but I don't think either of us would sit here and say like, oh, Triad is successful or as successful as we want it to be in Defined Nutrition as well, of course. But like, I think we still consider it at a point of like in its infancy, not of its like, it's not bloomed yet, And so, but I tell the stories at times of just different situations that happen because I think people come in and they see a busy store, a nice looking store, like the things that we put work into to make it be presentable and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I think sometimes that like look, or certain people's social media, not how we do it, but like can look at it and be like, oh, it's been smooth sailing for them. It's been super easy. And people who are also entrepreneurs are also trying to start and run a business look at it like, oh man, like I wish I didn't have the struggles I had. Like I wish it was easy for me too. And it's like, hey, no, like there's been plenty of times that we've had to, scratch and claw and fight just to make this be a thing.
Yeah. I know I even have the tendency to look at other successful businesses, like businesses that are more successful than us, of like, wow, man, they really found a really cool niche. Like, man, I really wish I would have thought of something like that. And it was almost like I'm looking at them that like they got lucky, when in reality, when I really think about it, I know that they probably didn't start off that great.
Right, exactly. They made plenty of mistakes just like we did.
Exactly. And they probably didn't start off with the exact, all the particulars that they have currently, all the things that make them work the way that they do right now. Yeah. They probably didn't start with that. And they had to learn those over time through a lot of trial and errors. What we had to do, we had a lot of our game plan to begin with. But there was also, especially within marketing, it was a lot of trial and error, especially off the bat. It was for every 10 things we were trying to help get our name out there, 9 of them weren't working.
Yeah, right. Like that's the thing is, I think that we finally kind of hit a point where we kind of at least understand marketing well enough, or at least for kind of where we're at. And then we have people like Ryan working on it and Alyssa working on it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right though. I mean, like how many times were we were going buckshot approach of just like, let's just get as many things out as possible and hope one of them catches. And then we kind of realized over time, like kind of what worked for us, what didn't work for us. But man, I mean, like how many different things do you think we tried at the beginning to just like hope something would catch along? And it's like, man, for the vast majority of it, it doesn't. And a lot of times that's like money and time and effort, not going your way, but you don't know if it's going to work until you try it.
And that's why I like still using the Unsuccessful Entrepreneur name, is because it is still a lot of trial and error. Yeah. Just before we started this, Ryan and I were talking about running social media ads, and that's not something that we've ever done with huge success. We've done it and supplemented it in to a lot of our marketing efforts in general, but it's not something that we've totally figured out. So we're doing a decent amount of trial and error, and I think even moving forward, it will continue to be that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. But man, I just think back, because I think especially some of the viewers that we potentially have, I know we have a lot of like people who also, by the way, thank you everybody who's listened to the podcast.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was, we were sitting there after we kind of decided we were going to do it. And Kevin and I both agreed that we'd be stoked if this got played 100 times. Like if 100 times this got listened to, we would be super excited. And I think last count, and again, it's not been out for very long, but I think last count across platforms is like almost 500 listens, which is pretty cool. Like, I mean, that's only 480 of them are me. So like, that's not too bad. That's at least 20 other people who have like chimed in on it. I got Ryan to laugh. But
good work.
Yeah, it's honestly the only reason I'm doing this. I just want to get Ryan to smile. Look at that smile. But seriously though, super awesome. Like, honestly, I was kind of taken back after continuing to see like the numbers and the things grow, where I was like, man, like, you know, in all the kind words and messages, and people have stopped by the store and people have, you know, congratulated us or just told us like, good job. And I think that's been, I hope you guys know how much that means to us, because that's super rewarding to hear that, like, not only did you actually take the time to listen to a couple of schmucks talk for an hour and 45 minutes, but like actually to come back and be like, I appreciated what you guys had to say. Like I learned a lot from about, you know, the company, about you guys, like, and honestly, I've gotten, you know, maybe just people being nice, but I've gotten like really positive feedback. People have given us like good critiques. Logan, who works down in Norman, for anybody who doesn't know, was beside himself upset that I did not have a table here, and that I had to reach up, for anybody who didn't watch the video, I had to reach up and grab my drink from the desk. So don't worry, Logan. We've got myself a little table right here. I think you'll be happy when you watch the video and you see.
A funny recommendation, but a genuinely good one. We have a table now.
Yeah, he was like, he's like, I just feel like if, you know, like, I don't want to, you know, say anything bad, but you know, if you guys just had like a little table or something there for you, like that way, you know, you could just grab your drink and probably be more comfortable. And I'm like, I appreciate you caring about me, Logan. But so that was our
worried about your comfortability.
That was our roughest critique. So I will take it.
So I told a number of people that we had enough fun, or I had enough fun last time recording it, that even if we just had a couple people listen to it, I'd want to do it again. We don't even
post it. We just keep showing up and doing all this, and it never goes online. I'm in.
I'd still be down.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could rope Ryan in for that or not, but
Ryan's like, I'm getting paid right now. So
that's true.
I am on the clock. So.
Wait, are we on the clock?
No.
I've never been on the clock.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have either.
No. But no, that I got really excited when we met the day after that Ryan had finished editing, but before we posted it, and announced that it was available for everybody, that we got together and we both had critiques like for ourselves and for the podcast in general in ways that we thought we could get better. Yeah. That was really exciting.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think it's always good to like not look at it and be like, yep, that was it. That's exactly what we want. Yeah. Like it was like, yeah, you know, I thought it was pretty good, but I definitely think there's room to grow. And
yeah, we were shooting for what, like a 7 out of 10 would have been great.
Yeah.
Or like I think I was like, man, if we could do a 5 out of 10, just decent.
Yeah.
Don't need to be perfect. It's our first one.
Yeah. Right. No. And I think, you know, from what I've heard, people have really been, you know, or the people who hated it just didn't tell us, but hey, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. If you hated it, maybe reach out, but like nicely.
Yeah. Be gentle, especially with Kevin. He doesn't, you know, but
I'm fragile.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he used to be called the machinist. But I agree though. I think if people do have critiques or things that they'd like to see or like differences with it, like I totally open. I got my first hater.
You did?
I got my first hater. Yeah, I would love to. We made little like marketing things, kind of just like snippets of the videos, and one of them was I'm going to pull this up on my phone because I really want to see exactly what it says, just to make sure that I'm quoting it accurately. But we made little snippets, and this was just like, you know, my video of me talking. You probably just heard it over the mic there for a second, but me just talking about one of the topics that came up. And with the first comment that got put on there, I don't even know who this guy is because it's just one on Instagram, but it says, nothing says sexy like a man who's wearing a shirt 2 times too small, a pair of women's leggings, and Jesus sandals.
I don't know if that's a hater.
I commented back and I said, listen, I'll kiss you.
Did you really?
But yeah, I was, it's Laurel livid. Laurel wanted to find this man. Laurel was like, I don't know who this is, but I'm going to kill him.
She's a ride or die.
Oh, for sure.
That's a good sign.
Super protective, for sure. But I'm like, listen, I'm not offended by this. I think it's funny.
I mean, you're not the greatest at standing up for yourself.
Yeah, no. And I was, to be honest, I was wearing women's leggings. So.
Were you really?
No, I was wearing just joggers. I was wearing joggers, my AC Milan jersey, and my Birks. But I don't know. He didn't appreciate the fit. Brian, what'd you think of the fit?
Subpar.
Not
my style.
Yeah, that's all right.
Not an AC Milan guy.
Not a Jersey guy.
Yeah, it's all right.
AC Milwaukee.
You heard it. You heard it here. AC Milwaukee. But yeah, I got my first hater. So I felt good about that. I feel like that's, and the video got quite a few views. I mean, especially for my social media is nothing crazy. So like, I think it ended up getting over 8,000 watches, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's a bunch. That's by far, a lot for me. So I was excited to see it. So hey, if random people are commenting, harassing things, I'm happy. Yeah, this is good. We can do it.
Yeah.
So so go ahead and just to make Laurel happy, anytime I post a video, just make fun of me, please. Just harass me, right? Verbally abuse me.
Laurel
on there
will come after you.
Yeah, well, you are warned. Let's go, Brandon 68932. You have been warned.
He didn't have any numbers in his name.
Why you gotta call me out like that? I was trying to make it seem like I knew exactly what it was. Classic Ryan.
This is why I knew you didn't know, and I was going to just go with it. He's an instigator.
Tell you what, man. I'm marking you as my 3rd best friend now.
So I moved up.
Yeah, I like it when people are mean to me. Anyway, but no, I think going kind of back to the unsuccessful entrepreneur thing, I think it is cool. I think it's supposed to be telling of like the struggles that like, hey, I think we're seeing in social media too, which I think is a good thing. I think we're seeing a lot of the pendulum swing towards people who are even, famous, in shape, beautiful people, whatever, successful people, of them being like much more honest about like, hey, this is the challenges. This isn't all, sunshine and rainbows. Like this has been a struggle for me at times, whether it was this or I was battling like, mental issues or whatever. It was like, hey, I was taking pictures and I look great, but I was like, depressed at the time or like really struggling mentally. And it's like I was even listening to, Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and I forget what the Zach, I forget. It's the guy who like he was Shazam, but anyway, he like talks about in it. He's like a super successful actor, like guy's good looking, like everything. He seems like he has the whole package, and he was talking about like being so like in a state of mental fatigue that was like really hard. He was like really depressed and everything, where he actually like ended up like checking himself into like a place where he was there for like a couple of weeks, and he like talks about changing his life and everything. And it's like, it's cool. I think for a lot of people who deal with their own struggles, I know we're getting a little bit deeper than what our thing is here, but like people just being honest about the struggles and the challenges, where it's like, I feel like people who see stuff like that and then or don't see stuff like that, I should say, they see somebody who just looks like perfect all the time. I think that like people looking on themselves and be like, what am I doing wrong? And it's like, no, I think that you or myself or anybody involved in Triad could look at a brand new starting business, like up and coming, and then be like, yeah, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And we'll be like, bro, yeah, like, I get it, dude. We had to deal with this too. And doesn't it suck? Like, it's not always so easy. I mean, I remember and we can tell the story if we want, but I remember at like one meeting that we had at the very beginning, we all just like looked at each other. We all knew what was coming. And it was, all right, everybody, this is very early. Let me be clear here. This is not any of our, like, you and I were the only people who were still here, but it was like myself, you, and then Chad and Vincent, the two original owners as well. But we sat there and we all just looked at each other and we're like, well, we're not getting paid anymore. Like, everybody go find second jobs because no money.
I remember that meeting vividly.
Oh yeah.
I think that was when we were doing video meetings, or it might have been Skype at the time.
Yeah. We were sitting in the bar office. We were sitting in the barfest.
In the barfest when we used to be roommates.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were sitting there and we just looked at each other and we're like, all right, cool. If we pay ourselves, we are going to go out of business. So guess what? Everybody go find another job. You were training. You were working at where were you? Fitness 19?
Fitness 19. Oh, yeah. I was working front desk and training.
Yeah. I was working at a liquor store. Chad was serving at Chili's, which is like still the funniest visual thing in my head. And then Vincent, who is a psycho for anybody who doesn't know Vincent. I say that endearingly because he's probably the most mentally strong person I know. But Vincent was working full-time in the store, was working full-time overnights at UPS.
I assumed.
Yeah.
That was his only income. So I assumed
he was
full-time.
working full times packing trucks, UPS overnight, and he was taking 18 credit hours at the time.
Was he 16 or 18? It
Something
was
like
a ridiculous.
lot.
It was more than I ever took in a semester.
Yeah, right. Like a full schedule, and was like to kind of just and this is something I talk about in the interviews too, but it's like he literally had to at one point get himself like 120 decibel alarm because he was sleeping like 1 to 2 hours a night, which I do not condone. He still says he has like permanent damage from that, but it like, you know, I think people can look on I think the point is people can look on the exterior and see like, oh, this business is not even just us, but this business is growing. This business is progressing. Look at all these cool things that they're doing, you know? And then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, like I ate pasta salad for 2 straight days because I didn't have any other food. Like, it was like we were all going through like, you know, how do we just make this work? Like, I think because I was working at the liquor store, and when I was working at the liquor store, I was making like $300 a week.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, let's go, you know?
I remember that meeting really vividly because how normal of a conversation that felt like it was. Like, no one was freaking out.
Yeah,
you know, we were paying ourselves pretty bare minimum prior to that.
Yeah.
And we had all had side income from time to time previously to that. Yeah. But then it was like a straight, like, hey, we're going to have to cut everybody completely.
Yeah.
No one's getting paid. And it was, everybody was just like, yeah, if that's what we got to do to make this thing work, then okay.
Yeah.
And there was a very small, I don't think there was any discussion over it. It was just,
No, I remember us just sitting there and we were just like, all right, cool. Like, cool. If no one's getting paid, let's split hours evenly and like, let's go.
Yeah. I think that's where you jumped in to working in the store regularly with the rest of us, right? Because
I was part-time kind of in the store. It was just kind of like helping out. But that was when it was like, yeah, when you guys were like, hey, we're just not going to make money right now.
Yeah. Because I remember you kind of jumped in. Yeah. You were helping out, you know, from time to time and just, yeah, in a smaller way than you were. But then when we cut our pay, you kind of looked at it as like, well, if you guys aren't getting paid, because we weren't able to afford to pay you as a full-time employee. Yeah. And then when we cut our pay, you said, well, if you guys aren't getting paid to work, then I can work and not get paid.
Hey, you know what? If we're all in the trenches, we're all in the trenches. Yeah.
You did that for what, 6 months?
Yeah, it was a good amount of time. Yeah. But hey, you know, that's what it took, though. You know what I mean? And I think that's like I guess to not be, you know, too projecting, but it's like, I think that like people have to understand that that's like, I guess what it takes sometimes, you know what I mean? And I'm like, again, we were blessed to have like 4 of us sitting there so gung ho, so ready to do it that it's like, I mean, you could have told all of us like, hey, you're working for free and like, you know, I'm going to break your leg too, and we'd be like, all right, well, you know, crutches aren't too bad. Like,
I can. They got wheelchairs at Goodwill. I can go get one of those.
Yeah, it'll be all right. You know, we'll make it work. So I think that obviously was like a huge blessing for us, and it's like, dude, that's when I see, you know, even though you're a solo owner now, but it's like, I look at companies that, and of course that came with, having multiple owners. I don't think it's, nobody would hold it as a secret that like that comes with struggles. Right. But I think it's also one of those things where it's like, I look back at those times and like, sure, it came with struggles, but I also look back at it as like, if there was just one of us, how do you even do it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even do it?
That's definitely a big part of it is it needed a handful of people with the same mentality to make that work. Yeah. If it was just me, I have high doubts that I would have been able to make.
Yeah. I mean, because like, how do you? I mean, you'd have to be, whether drastically cutting your hours or whatever, like
stores open 72 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
How do I work 72 hours a week and a job for income?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, it was enough of a struggle for four of us to be doing it and making it work. But, I mean, obviously things are good now, but it's one like, yeah, I don't know how somebody does it. That's why I look at like solo owners who are like, in the grind phase of things. And it's like, shout out to you guys, like doing this, like potentially on your own or like with, a small team. And it's like, if you don't have people who are as committed to as like we were, and we don't expect people to be, right? Like we wouldn't be asking our employees to work for free, but it's like, there was four of us that were like, cool, like let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Man, one thing that I never really thought about until you start bringing up this story again, but the cool aspect of that is how positive of an attitude we kind of had about that. And I remember us talking about, okay, we cut our hours. Like obviously they could be looked at as an extremely terrible thing. And obviously it's kind of, cut our pay. Sorry, not our hours, but cut our pay, still working hours. Yeah. And it could be looked at as obviously a pretty terrible thing. There's a lot of terrible things that kind of come along with that. Yeah. But we all had the attitude of like, man, we're probably the only supplement store that doesn't have payroll. So how cool is that?
Yeah, cool. That'd be easy.
And our expenses are lower than everybody's.
That's hilarious.
We found the positive in it.
No, for sure, man. And I think that's like, you always hear whether it's, I'll be careful here on what I compare it to, but it's like being on a sports team or like people talk about just like when you go through trials, but you've got, brothers and sisters or whatever, like side by side, when it's like when everyone's going through it, it's just normal and it's okay. And so it's like, those are obviously like kind of like difficult times, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to go back to that, but it's, I think that's dude, if we didn't have the positive mindset that we had at the time, again, how do we make it? How does Vincent do what he did? Because he was the one pushing more than anybody. Like, and that's, I
mean, kind of like what you said, it's inspirational, but probably shouldn't do it to that extreme.
Yeah.
Use it to stay up an extra couple hours, but not the whole night kind of thing.
Right. But again, like, without that sacrifice, I can't say for sure, but it's like, none of us can, of course, but it's like without that sacrifice, if all of us or any of us would have been like, okay, cool. Hey, you know what?
Don't know if it's worth it.
Don't know if it's worth it. And then we drop down again. Like, how does that? I mean, that's a super tough situation to just like continue to go. And I mean, you even went through it too, like after Chad and Vincent, ended up going on to do other things where it was like, all right, Kevin.
Yeah.
Here you go.
They made it a very easy transition. Honestly, anybody, and it's really cool that we haven't had a whole lot of people leave the company, but everyone that's ever left the company has had the mindset to make it as easy as possible for us.
Yeah.
Like Chad and Vincent, I think, gave 6 months notice and continued to work in the store.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't getting paid. And even though they knew they weren't going to be in ownership by the end of the year.
Yeah.
It was even the employees. Alfonso deserves a shout out. He decided he was going to start coaching and running his apparel line, Let's Work, full time. And this was at a time where we were opening up Norman. He stuck around for, I think, 4 or 5 months to help us. He actually worked Norman after it got open to give us time to transition him out.
I mean, how long have we known that Trace was transitioning out?
Oh, you know?
I mean, it's a ton of time.
Like 7 to 9 months.
Yeah. Like we've known it was going to be a thing. And it was like, man, not to pat ourselves on the back, but like one thing that I am like, I'll say it, I'm so damn proud of the way that like people leave our company and the way that they handle it and the way that we handle it. I can't tell you how many horror stories I hear of people leaving companies and like whether they're being like insulted or talked down to or just like berated in some way. And it's like, I just don't get it. Like, you know, it's a tough situation. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's tough to lose people. When I was at the hospital, like, again, for anybody who doesn't know, I worked at OU Medical Center, was, worked at the patient transportation department, and oversaw a number of people. But when it was like, especially if you had somebody who was like a linchpin, a cog, like somebody who was like really important to the operation, and it's like, and they were leaving, like, yeah, that sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. There's never a time that's not a bummer, but like, when did the idea of like insulting someone to the point of them staying? Like, has that ever happened?
Has it ever worked?
Yeah, has that ever worked? Like, I get it. It's like,
maybe once.
Yeah, but it's like these people, it's like I hear stories of, just random people I've talked to, but they're like, oh yeah, my boss at the time when I told him I was leaving to go to a different company started insulting my manhood. And you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, I just like could never imagine a situation where like, I think, and to dive deeper into that, and maybe this is just like my own personal thoughts on it. So, this is my opinion, of course, but like, I feel like there's some part of that when people, especially when somebody is leaving to go pursue their dreams, right? Like Zach Yunker left to go pursue his dreams, right? Alfonso left to go pursue his dreams. He wanted to see where Let's Work and all that kind of stuff. And he's at Pride now, but it's like, he wanted to go out on his own and he wanted to kind of like, you know what, I'm going to dive into this. And it's like, same thing with Zach and even Trace to the same extent of like going in like, hey, I think that this is where my life is going to be the best. And we've always been like, oh, bro, I know what that feels like. Let me help, like, let me do anything I can to make this an easy transition for you. And like, you do the same for us. And like, you give us the respect of like staying as long as, it makes sense or, kind of helping us through the transition, which everyone has done. But like I think people who get angry and especially get insulting, like, or start insulting someone who is going to pursue their dreams. It's controversial here, but I just, that has to come from somebody who didn't do it. That has to come from somebody who never made the leap themselves.
Think so?
I think it is, man. I think it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just not my style to like insult people who are trying to pursue their dreams. But like, if you insult somebody who is trying to like literally go and do what they think is like going to be essentially the biggest decision in their life, right? If you take that moment to like insult that person or like tell them they're dumb or tell them whatever. I mean, dude, how many times have we heard that? Like, I've heard it for sure, especially when I was like transitioning from the hospital back to Triad full time. Was people like, are they paying the same? Are they going to pay you what you're making there? Like, not even close. Like, it's not about that. Like, why is it always about money? It's not about happiness. And it's like, I feel like it's one of those situations where, at least in my own personal life, every person who had something negative to say about me pursuing what my lifelong dream was, my lifelong goal, like what I want to see for myself in the future. And I think you can be achieved here and done the way that I want to do it at a place where I have my fingerprints on like everything I want out of it. And they look at you and they try to find a negative. Every single one of those people who was like that with me, I looked at, and I can personally, because I know them, pick out the moment in their life where they settled. And it's like, is that, are you yelling at me or are you yelling at yourself? Because like you never had the huevos to jump and just go do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's such a frustrating thing to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's such a frustrating thing to me, like watching people act that way. Because first off, like, do you think it's going to work? No, you don't. You're just, you're just doing this to feel better in the moment. And two is it's like to me, and I've even given this advice to, not advice, but I've like kind of said this to people who have like talked to me about situations like this. I'm like, brother, I'm not yelling at you. They're yelling in the mirror.
I don't know if I've thought about that in the past. I feel like that could be true. My instinct, because obviously that's a pretty common thing for there to be, not great relationships after someone leaves a job, but it's because I know my instinct when, you know, someone comes to me and says, hey, you know, I'm leaving the company, you know, my initial feeling is, man, you're leaving the team. Like,
it's I understand
it's, you know, sad. And, you know, instinct can also be a little bit angry as well. But at the same time, it's, I guess I hope I've done a good job of not showing that.
I think you've done a good job of that. Well, but I think this is the thing. And let me, I guess, not preface because this is after it, but like, this is also to somebody like leaving on good terms, like giving a notice, like doing all these kind of things. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, as an employer, like you screw me over, like I'm going to be upset with you for sure. But it's like, if somebody comes to me, like when I left the hospital, I gave a 2-month notice, gave them a 2-month notice. I got them through the fiscal year and I handed them my replacement. And I was like, I'm trying to do everything right here. And I left on good terms at the hospital. So it's like not a perfect situation. So it's like, I think that we've always had the blessing of people leaving on good terms. And of course, don't get me wrong, I think that's the point is like, of course you have frustrations. Of course it's like, oh man, you're leaving the team. And like, this is tough. Like I'm going to have to replace this. And it's like, am I going to be able, like Alfonso and Trace, everybody really, but like let's use Alfonso as an example. Alfonso is like, such a statement employee. Like he is somebody who like
he was one of 3 at one point.
Well, and he's also like in a lot of ways the metric of which we base employees off of, right?
Yeah.
Like that dude was as hardworking, as personable, and as excited about Triad as you can get, right? And so that's kind of, you know, so of course you look at somebody like that and you're like, shit, how do I replace all of these things? How do I do it? We've always been, again, blessed to find people who have replaced and done wonderfully. Like I wouldn't change our team for anything. But I think what happens, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you go, oh, shit. And you're upset and you're like, man, you're leaving the team. Like this is kind of a bummer. I thought that this was going to be a long-term thing. And then you go, you know what? Who am I to keep somebody from their dream? Seriously? Who am I to keep somebody from, you got the pour for me. Who am I to keep somebody from doing like Zach Younger, right? Who am I to keep Zach from pursuing his dream of like art? Like whether it's, you know, him doing his paintings or doing his animation, going to animation school and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think we looked at him and we were like, because don't get me wrong, like I'm sure at jobs that we've left, S2 potentially, like us leaving S2 was, or supplement superstores for anybody who doesn't know, like I'm sure there was like, dang, you know, like we're losing some, you know, like at least at the time for sure, like some solid employees who had like some bright futures. You know, Chad had just won Employee of the Year. Like we had won back-to-back Store of the Year for both of our stores that we were running. Like all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm sure there was like at some point, some like, oh, man, this is frustrating. You know, how do we replace this? But I think what you have done, and kudos to you, what I think that you have done that has been really good is you've looked at somebody and been like, you're me. Mm-hmm. You're just living, you know, you're exactly where I was. Mm-hmm. And like, there was nobody that was getting in your way of pursuing this. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, at that point, I think it's like, you just kind of like, well, all right. You know what? And then I think that we've done, and you specifically, but just as a company, is like, I think we've done a really good job of like being supportive as much as possible. Hey, how do we, like, let's build a plan. Let's transition this through. How can we help you? How can the company help you? You know, what can we kind of do in these situations to make life easier for you? You know, I think that that's a super cool thing. And I think that that's why our relationship with previous employees is still so strong, right? Like we have really strong relationships with everyone who's ever been on the Triad or Define team.
We go do something and Alfonso shows up for it still.
Right. You know, Zach and Haley show up, like all those kind of things. And it's like, again, though, to kind of reference back on like what I think is the most important thing is I think that you can look at that person in the eyes and see yourself and you go like, yeah, no, I get it, man. Go get it.
So I think the thing that runs through my head is, number one, I you know, try and remember that it's unrealistic for everyone that we hire on to stay on for the rest of their life. It would
except for Ryan.
Yeah. Don't leave us, Ryan.
You're on forever, champ.
But number one, I think it's unrealistic for us to think that we can keep every single person that we hire on. You know, we do our best and we make it as good of an environment, a good of a workplace as possible. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're still prepared for that to happen, because there are situations where, hey, like Zach Yunker wants to go pursue, like he gets so busy with artwork and painting murals and doing graphics for people that he doesn't even have time to work in the store. That's number one, pretty cool.
Yeah.
But when they come to me, so I think Alfonso is a good example. When he came to me, I was caught a little off guard. I wasn't expecting him to want to leave the company. We were, again, we had I don't even think we had announced opening up the Norman store, but we had signed the lease, had the keys. We're going to start build out. And then he comes to me and says, hey, I want to go pursue these other things that are starting to take off for me. And I think for a second, I was a little bit in denial of man, like that's a huge blow for us as you're a stellar employee.
Yeah. You lose an Alfonso. It's never a great thing.
Yeah. And him coming to me, I think there was a moment of me trying to figure out why and come to terms with it. But at the end of the day, he's made this decision, and him coming to Triad was a big decision. So him leaving Triad was also a big decision. So to be in that situation and finally like come to terms, it took me, a few minutes, I think, before I really kind of settled into it. But once I got to that, it was, hey, this person has made that big decision to leave the company. Yeah. There's nothing
wasn't done
really,
on a whim.
Exactly. He's clearly thought about this. There's nothing really I can do to convince him to stay. So at the end of the day, he's going to leave. We can either be friends or not be friends afterwards. And I love Alfonso. He became a very good friend when he worked at the store. And again, he still comes and hangs out with us.
Yeah. Talk to Alfonso all the time.
Yeah. And at that point it was, okay, you're leaving. That is what it is. Let me make sure that I can still be friends with you afterwards.
Yeah. But just like I'm sorry, Stanley's got the scratchies right now.
Stanley's chilling this time.
Yeah, he's on the couch and everything for anybody not watching. But I mean, could you like live in a world where you're like, F you, like you POS, like how dare you, like what? And people act that way, I know one of the things that we talked about for doing this podcast was to not give unsolicited advice to people, but don't do that. Don't do that. It's not going to work.
I'll give a pass on that one.
It's just, but again, man, I think, and I'm not trying to be insulting to the people who are, obviously get emotional and upset about these situations, but like every situation I hear of, I always ask like, did this person ever take the leap? And they're like, you know what? No, they didn't. And I'm like, oh, right. Because here's the thing, man. Like, especially with jobs, it can definitely be difficult. And even a difficult thing for me when I was leaving my job. And it was like, I was trying to be as nice about it as possible because especially in my position that it was at the hospital, like they were offering me director positions. They were wanting me to either move states or, be a director here locally. And that was great. Like they were offering me like good money. Like, I mean, everything like on the surface level that you're like, oh, this is like.
Did the hospital offer you anything when you gave them your notice?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They offered me a director position here, like locally, because they thought that I was leaving because I didn't want to leave Oklahoma. So they offered, we were adding into our contract. So we oversaw internal patient transportation. So just any kind of patient movement. You're in your room, you need to go to X-ray. It's our people who go and pick you up and bring you over there. And so, they were bringing on, patient sitters. They were bringing on like different departments that they were going to have like patient transport and essentially my boss at the time, like oversee. And so I know one of the offers that they made for me was like, if you don't want to leave, because at the time I had been offered Chicago, I had been offered New Orleans, and I was second choice if the first guy decided he didn't want it for Kansas City. And it's like, those are obviously like three awesome cities and like really great things. For me, I realized I wasn't ready to I love Oklahoma City and I wasn't ready to leave. And it's like, I don't know. And it's like, the job is fine. But it's like, you're continuing to progress along in your career. And it's like, these are like logical moves and things are happening. And yeah, they made that offer for me to oversee one of the, I want to say it was patient observation. So it was like they offered to make me the patient observation director and stay here locally at OU Medical. And I was like, guys, again, like like October 1st, I'm not going to be here anymore. So like, you know, which is great. And they're a great company. And like, I totally understand why people want to pursue that career. But the hardest thing that it was like, especially for me in that position, was like, I'm kind of telling my boss, like, I don't want his life. And it's like,
you can't say that directly.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like at the end of the day, I'm looking at him and I'm looking at like the things that he has, like, you know, he makes plenty of money, like drives a nice car. Like he has all those like service level things. But I'm like looking at him and I'm like, oh man, like where you're at is just not what I want to go for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like a super, you know, and you know, I like that's where I think people don't always understand. He's like, well, why would you not? We're going to pay you this. We're going to pay you that, you know? And this is we're talking like substantial, you know, amount of money. Like, it's like, we're talking like, you know, 6 figures kind of like salaries. And it was like, yeah, I understand. And it's like, you know, why, like, and they're like, well, you know, triad's not good. And I'm like, no, guys, I understand. This is not, you know, this has been something that's been on my mind for a long time. Like, I understand the like $50,000 pay cut I'm taking. Like, this is a thing that it's like, no, this is like, I think I realized at that moment, and we're getting a little off topic, but I think it still like pertains to it too, was like, and I've told people this at times too, when they've like asked me for advice about like them pursuing their future and what they want to do, as I was like, look, at the time, like not married, don't have a mortgage, like don't have these things that are like, don't have kids, you know, don't even have a dog, like, but I don't have these things that are like, I'm super responsible financially, like fiscally responsible for these things. And it's like, I don't have a huge list of that. And I realized, you know, at the time I was 28, I believe, 28, either 28 or just turned 29. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, this might be my last opportunity to make a decision that's purely happiness based. Like, my railroad tracks of like where we're heading in life, my railroad tracks, this might be my last time to change those, and money be my like 5th or 6th factor and not my first. Because I understand people get into these situations where they're married, they've got kids, and, you know, all these different things where it's like, you know, if we don't do this, you know, Johnny can't, you know, whatever. And it's like, I understand that. And for sure. And I was like, but I think everybody kind of goes through, you only get so many opportunities in your life, I feel like, to do that, where it's like, I either jump and go for it or be happy where I'm at and like sometimes settle. I think for me, when it came to the hospital, I was sitting there like, I'm settling for my happiness for a paycheck. Like, it pays me really good money, more money than I've ever had, bar none, not even close. But it was one of those things like, I'm sitting here looking at it, it's like, I have a money or happiness decision, and this might literally be my last time in life where I can go happy, purely happy. Let's go happy, you know? And, you know, there's part of me that it's like, man, I feel for people who aren't able to make that decision or don't make that decision. You know what I mean? Because, you know, obviously we view a big future for Triad, and like, you know, hopefully those things aren't like a worry, but like, you know, I think that people don't realize all the time. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's like, people don't realize all the time that it's like, like if you don't jump now, you're 2 life events or 1 life event away from not being able to make this decision again. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you got a mortgage, you got all this stuff, like you got car payments. Like, how
many people have we talked to that have interest in working at the store, but just can't make the pay work?
Yeah,
because
of course.
We're, you know, a growing business, and we can only afford to pay, you know, and a big part of what we
pay $1.50 an hour.
IRS is going to come at our door. But we obviously, a big part of, you know, what we do is we promote from within as opposed to hire outside management. So everyone starts base level, and a lot of people can't make that work. They can't make that pay work. And that's because they've got so many bills and so many, you know, things that they're responsible for that they just can't figure out a way to make that.
Real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, just because I want to make this point and like make it super clear. I've never fucking missed the money. I've never regretted this decision. Not a moment in my life.
Hell yeah.
Not a moment since leaving the hospital. Have I ever been like, man, really should have stayed? Not a moment. I've like I still don't make what I made at the hospital. You know what I mean? And it's like that. Who cares? Like I get it. Maybe I'm getting on my own like pedestal here, but like I get it. When people are like, oh, you don't understand. It's money. Money's important. Money. Yeah, money's great and money's important. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, you have to pay for things, but it's like when people base their whole life around like making, like I had people leave the hospital all the time for fewer opportunities. Somebody would leave the hospital. We're paying $10.50 an hour or whatever. And they leave the hospital. We had a huge infrastructure of like supervisors, management. Like there was people you could easily progress and make more money, but people would leave because a department down the hall was paying $11, like 50 cents more an hour. And is like, has no infrastructure for growth. And I'm like, guys, like at least like plant your feet and like continue to grow with that wherever you are. It was like, you know, in 6 months I would have promoted you. And instead of making $11 an hour, you'd be making $15.50 or whatever. And it's like, you would have gotten a $4 or $5 raise. And it's like, people, and I get it. I get that like life is expensive, but it's like when people put so much emphasis on like what that number on their paycheck says at the expense of their happiness. It's like I use this example all the time in the store for like different things. It's like you're trying to make your car faster by taking the engine out. Like, yeah, sure, it's lighter, but it's not going anywhere. And it's like, if you expect the happiness to come with that like next pay raise or that next pay bump, like don't get me wrong. When I was at the hospital, I realized pretty early on, and I was there for 4.5 years, was like, at one point I looked at myself and I realized like, I'm living for the weekends currently, and it's just going to get more stressful. With more pay comes more stress, more responsibilities, more this, more that. I had a cell phone I had to keep on me 24/7, 365 days. To go off at 2:00 in the morning because 2 employees were arguing about something stupid. And it's like, none of this is worth it. None of this is worth my happiness or my sanity. I'm going to be living, you know, for the weekends where it's like, sorry if I'm calling anybody out here, but like living for the weekends to like get on the boat and throw my kid off the inner tube. That was the thing that was going to be the only source of serotonin I had, was like getting drunk at the lake on the weekends. And it's like, you know, and people live that life and they like it, I guess, but it's like, that's just not for me, man. Like, right. I'm so happy with that decision. I have never missed a day of that. Not a moment.
Hell yeah. I know that was a big thing for me starting out. And I said this, and I was young, and, you know, you could probably look at it now and say, you know, that didn't actually come true. You know, was it just words? But starting out, all the original partners got together. So it was Chad, Vince, and myself got together and kind of talked about why we wanted to go into business, why we wanted to pursue this, because we knew it wasn't going to be easy. It was a lot harder than we thought it was going to be, but we also knew it wasn't going to be easy. No. And it was cool to hear from them on their reasons why they got started. But for me I just wanted to build something that's bigger than myself. I want to be part of something that is a source of good, even just in a small way, and just watch something grow from the ground up to be as big as we can possibly build it. Yeah. And I didn't want to, it wasn't for the pay. It was, so I explained that I would rather end up with just a business that covers the entire state of Oklahoma and make $7.25 an hour, which was,
say this 100 times,
but make $7.25 an hour to grow this big business, as opposed to having one shop and make, you know, a 6-figure salary.
Yeah. So, and you know, and I get it. I get why people do it, but for me, man, it's like, that's just, I don't know if that's inspiring or not, but like, man, I just like, when you're so driven towards the money, I mean, we talk about this in everything, right? Like, one of our good buddies, Andrew Aguero, restaurateur, Andrew Aguero, the nicest guy that has ever lived, the most selfish human I've ever met.
That's not an exaggeration either.
He is a future, like, going to be on the podcast because the guy has like so many like good points and thoughts. It's a very smart guy. Runs very good businesses. But one of the things that he asked us one time was like, who is Define for? Like Define Nutrition. And I think this is the same thing can be said for Triad. Who is Define and Triad for? And especially when he said Define, the answer that I gave was us. Right. And I think that like, you know, I think that's, I don't know if it's a secret, but I feel like it's such an important aspect to maybe entrepreneurship or businesses in general is like, don't go into it. Like what I mean by for us is like, I could say Define is for like making good margins and Define is for like, you know, cutting out the middleman and like all of those kind of having control over something. And it's like, no, like we make Define, like Preston Lynn, whenever he makes like formulations for Define, they are for him.
Yep. Yeah. That's why they're great.
Right. Because Preston goes like, I want the best pump I've ever had in my life. And he's like putting together this ridiculous pump product. Right. Or he's seeing how he would use something in his own life. In no moment that I know of, and all of my interactions with Preston, he's at least never mentioned it, is, oh, and also we'll make good money on this.
That's never,
it's never crossed his mind. And I don't think it's crossed any of our minds because it's not the point. The point is like, you know, Alfonso, another good example. If you were to ask Alfonso, and I'm kind of guessing to an extent, but knowing Alfonso like I do, who's Let's Work for? Let's Work is for him.
Yep.
And it's like, if you make something, and what I mean by this, and to clarify, is like when you make something for yourself and not for the money, you make it because you love it. You make it because you want something that you would wear. It's something that you would take or something that you think is super cool. And it's not about dollars and all of this stuff. It's like when you make something like that and it is like you have that much passion in it, and you're not cutting out the coolest ingredient to make it cheaper. You see these supplement lines that come out that it's like super underdosed to everything. It's what's the point of this? And like, oh, but you're going to make this margin on it.
Or missing some key points.
And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. But who's going to buy this? But it's one of those where like, when you see Alfonso like come out with stuff for Let's Work or whatever, or when Andrew has a recipe for a restaurant, he's not looking at it as like, oh, we're going to be able to sell it for this and it's going to cost. And I'm sure that's aspects of it, of course, like a business, but
you have to take it into consideration.
Of course. But the point is like, no, he makes it because he's like, this is a damn good meal. So this is a shirt I want to wear. Or for us, it's like, this is a product I want to take. And it's like, when you have that passion and you have that love and it's a passion project for you, then when other people see it, and then it's like, oh, I get it.
So it's actually a really cool process, to talk about with Define Nutrition, is that it is always formula first. And we create, so Preston, you know, is putting together some different pre-workout and pump formulas that we're kind of messing with in the future. Shouldn't probably say too much on that because that's a while off.
Yeah.
That's like that's 2023.
Early info for anybody checking into the podcast.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath.
And we're messing with those types of ingredients. And, you know, he's put a pre-workout formula together, and it's, you know, getting a little bit worried about, oh, there's a lot of, you know, really expensive ingredients in there. And it's one of those that it's, hey, let's not mess with this, assuming that some of these are going to be out of our budget. Let's move forward with getting a quote at first, at least.
Yes.
Let's formulate the best possible product. And that's what we've always done, is start with what's the coolest formula we could possibly make on this product, and then go to the manufacturer, go to, you know, our broker, get it quoted, get, you know, critiques from their chemists on staff, and get back with it. And then once we have the price, we are always able to work with the price with, as far as like how many servings we're putting into it, how many, you know, what price we're selling it for in store. Right. And we can manipulate those things with the formula being set the way that it is.
Right. And that's the thing, is it's like, you know, I don't think Alfonso's ever released a shirt being like, oh, this is going to be the one I make all my money on. You know what I mean? Alfonso releases something that he's like, I'm damn proud to wear this. And because he's damn proud to wear this and is excited about it, other people pick up on that excitement. And it's like, Let's Work is for him. Yeah. And it's like, and everybody else gets to appreciate it and enjoy it too. And it's like, I feel like that's such a thing. Like I tell people in the store all the time, they're like, oh, when Define comes up or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, I hate to say it this way, but it's like, it's not a pet project or like a little fun side thing, because it's like a legitimate business that we're trying to grow. But it's like, oh yeah, we just make stuff that we want. Like we look at the market and we see different products and we see different things and we're like, oh, these are all cool and great, but like, wouldn't it be cool if it was like this? And then we're like, yeah, that would be cool. And then Preston's like, wait a second, I could do that. And then you're like, yeah, we could totally do that. And then boom, Hydrate comes out.
Yeah. And then you had this formula put together, and then people come into the store and they're like, what's your favorite? And you're like, oh, I'm going to have to, like, I'm pushing my own brand, but like, be like, just know, like, I'm super biased. Like, we created, like, we
say that all the time.
Yeah. I always use that.
I am biased, but I like this the best.
It's 100% true though, because when we set out to make the formula, we decided to make the best possible formula we could, and that naturally ends up being our favorite. We didn't set out to make the second best formula.
Right. Well, look at Hydrate, for example. How long did the formulation of Hydrate take? Like we went through, so anybody who doesn't know, like with Define Hydrate, we actually base it off like a medical device in the sense of that it's electrolyte ratios are matched to a lactated ring or IV bag. And so that's, you know, you're in a situation where you're severely dehydrated, you go to the hospital or whatever. That's the kind of thing that they're going to hook you up to. And we're like, well, if that's good enough for the hospital, it's probably good enough for a supplement, right? And so we tried to base it directly off of that. But dude, I mean, the
conversions are way harder than you think. What's listed on a medical bag, like a medical IV bag, is very different than what's listed on supplement facts or nutrition facts. Right. So it's and that info is just, you can't Google it.
Right.
Was the hardest thing.
I had to call one of the IV bag manufacturers and ask them if this was like essentially like yielding or actual amount. Like, is it, you know, because you'll see like sodium nitrate or whatever, and it's like, how much of this is like sodium from this, or is this like total that's added into the bag?
So that's where we got away with it. If you see on the back of the Define Hydrate label, it says input amounts, which is what the medical industry will list. Yeah. But up top, it'll list I believe it's supplement facts, not nutrition facts. And that's where it's the actual like the actual sodium amount, not the sodium chloride amount.
Right. So, right. Sodium chloride is a nitrate, but but that's that whole idea is like, but again, if it wasn't our little passion project at the time, dude, I literally, and they wouldn't tell me, this is the funniest thing. So the manufacturer wouldn't tell me, right? They were like, oh, well, what are you doing it for? Like, what do you need? Like they were like super questioning of it. Right. And so I was like, I had to dive in. This is a funny story. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I had to dive in a little bit more and like started looking at them, because I was like, they were like, yeah, well, what's this for? And they started asking, they're like, well, we're a medical supply company. You know, if you're not with a hospital or like with a doctor's office or something, like, you know, we don't really have any reason to be talking to you. And I'm like, whoa, like, okay. So I got on their website. The same company makes like veterinarian ones, and you can buy it. It's the exact same thing, but it's for horses. And I was like, yeah, my horse is dehydrated. What do these numbers mean? And I literally like it was the exact same thing, but it gave us the information that we needed. But it was like literally calling, pretending to have a sick horse in order to like get the numbers that we need.
Define Hydrate, also great for horses.
Yeah. So fun fact, they love the margarita.
I told you about so you called the IV bag manufacturer. I told you about the actual supplement, like our supplement manufacturer ghosting us on the hydrate, like the hydrate production, right?
That's never happened before.
I have some horror stories. Yeah. But we had gone through so many iterations because we were trying to get info from our supplement manufacturer at the same time as well to, you know, match these amounts again, which is an extremely hard thing to do because we're trying to converge two totally different industries and
to communicate that.
And we're trying to play middleman where we're, you know, trying to be the experts in both, but don't really know enough about either.
Yeah, we're trying to do our best.
Yeah. And so we had gone through so many iterations of the formula, and this was the first time we had ordered from this new manufacturer that they were not really sure how serious we were. So we had gone through so many reformulations with it that they just stopped responding to us.
Yeah, we're very serious about it.
Yeah. And I really think the formula we ended up with was the last one that I needed, that I had emailed over.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, not getting anything.
Yeah. I remember we got to a point, right, where like we were willing, I'm pretty sure we offered to like pay part of like the manufacturing costs. Like, guys, like pay attention to us. Like,
no, what we did was, so we had kind of on the back burner, we weren't sure when we were going to order it, but we had the Define Multi formulated, like completely ready to go.
that's right.
No iterations. So we sent them an invoice for Define Multi just so they would take us seriously enough to continue to push the hydrate formula forward.
Right. Like, guys, like we'll pay for this right now. Just so that you know that we're not just like yanking your chain here. Like we're real life, like trying to order stuff from you.
Placed in an order for an entirely new product just for them to take us seriously.
Yeah. So anybody who takes Define Multi, that's why it exists right now.
Yeah.
Well, we would have done it anyway, but
we were planning on doing Multi later that year, but we pushed it forward.
yeah, because we kind of like had to in that situation. I think this is, we kind of, talked about it a second before, we've been talking about struggles and different things that we've gone through. I think this is a good time to tell the story of the original Define Nutrition manufacturer.
Mm-hmm. I have told this.
Hold on to your seats, folks. This one's rough.
Quick break. Do we want to wait for Ryan?
No.
Okay. So I've told this story to other people that are in the industry and work with manufacturers and order products. Like they do the same thing that we do as Define Nutrition. Mm-hmm. I was actually, I was sitting down with a couple of guys for dinner one night, and they started telling horror stories about their manufacturers and the situations that they had gone through.
That's fun, right?
And I was like, oh, I've got a good one too. The end of this story, both of their jaws were on the table. Like, oh my.
They were like, we've never had to deal with that.
Like, we're so sorry.
Yeah. Who was it? Who you were talking to? Name drop.
I was talking to Sean and
Sean Vasquez,
one of the owners of Victory. Yep. Jacob is his name.
Sean owns Pride Foods, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. You should know.
Yeah. He'd be another good guest for the podcast. Yeah. He's cooler than we are. So
yeah. He can't sit on the couch though. He'll make me look small.
He would out angle you over there.
He would for sure. He'd be closer to the camera, and he's already massive. So
I always talk about, one of my big things is that, and maybe this is a little bit blunt and maybe a little bit misguided information, but I believe that businesses don't fail, that people find their breaking points and decide to quit. I agree with that. I think no matter what situation that you're in, you can always outwork it, or you can get creative and find a way out of it, no matter what. Sometimes it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's a lot of creativity. Sometimes it's both. But the reason that I think this way, or the reason I believe this, is that the situation that we got into very early on with Define Nutrition,
the original run of Define Nutrition, correct?
The very first run of Define Nutrition, we were working with a manufacturer.
Who was it specifically? I'm just kidding.
I was just about to say, I'm not casting any shade. So we're young, and we had done our due diligence as much as we could online with finding which manufacturer is going to work best for what products we want to create. Which one has enough certifications, which one's GMP certified. So they check all the boxes. As much research as we could possibly do. We even went and visited the manufacturer to meet them and build a relationship and check on, actually see the facility.
Yeah. Well, and to preface a little bit too, I think what some people maybe don't know is whenever manufacturing supplements, one of the biggest things, it's a very difficult market to break into for a number of reasons. If you don't know anybody especially, but breaking into the supplement market, one of the biggest hurdles that people go through is going to be minimums. So people don't, if it's the reason why you can't just go make a one-off of like your whatever pre-workout you want, like minimums can be, 500 to 1,000 per flavor. And, we're talking about products that could cost you $20 to $30 to make. And now we're looking at you want to make, if it's a 500 minimum, they cost you $30 to make, you want to make 2 flavors. It's like, cool. There's a $30,000+ investment just for a single product to come out in 2 flavors. And so, in our research of doing this, we have to find people who are reputable, like you said, GMP certified facility. We want to make sure that we're making quality stuff. We want to make sure that it's coming from a clean, safe environment, like all those things that all the products that Triad have. But we also have to be like, it can't be somebody who makes these massive orders all the time. Excuse me, that My Chemical Romance has come back up. But they can't be making these massive orders all the time, because they might have these expectation of minimums. You know, when First Form orders flavors of stuff, you know, who knows what they're ordering? 20,000 units, you know, if not more. And so, you know, if they're used to doing that and we're like, hi, we would like 100 of each flavor, please. They're going to laugh at us, and we're not going to get the time of day. So it's like you get that balance of like reputable manufacturer, but also willing to work with somebody smaller.
The minimums are, a big part to that as well. We found a lot of great manufacturers that, hey, you know, you got to get 2,000 of each flavor of everything you make. And it's like, well, I don't think we can
That's
move
all
that.
the money we have.
Yeah. So, you know, we did our research. We did as much due diligence as we could online to find the manufacturer that works well for us, and find one that kind of checks all our boxes and actually seems very solid. We even did flavor testing with them when we went to go visit, and all the flavors were great. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when we finally got our products, the products were good quality, great ingredients, good flavors. We moved it well, but
correct size tubs.
Most of them were correct size tubs.
Anybody who doesn't know, our first pre-workout came in a protein tub. It looked ridiculous. Continue.
PTSD.
Yeah, so goofy looking.
But so we were starting Define Nutrition the same time that we were starting Triad, and we did 3 months of build out at Triad. So, you know, we're going through the steps and jumping through the hoops for Define Nutrition at the same time, and said, hey, you know, we're investing a lot of money. We want to start to make a return on that as soon as we open up Triad. Like that's going to be a big part of our business.
Sure.
So we said, hey, you know, we want it by, I think we said we want to make sure we have it before we open. So I think we shot for, hey, we're opening up November 13th, which is the day that we opened. They said, we'll do you one better. We'll get it to you before November 1st. Complete lie. November 1st.
Little foreshadowing.
November 1st comes around. Hey, we're going to have to push it back, you know, a couple of weeks. It's like, okay, hey, that's fine. Like, you know,
we can make that work.
Yeah. Get closer to open, and they say, hey, I think we're going to have to push it back a little bit longer. We're like, okay, like that won't be long after we open. We can get it rolling. And just kept doing that over and over again, to the point where they had given us a day. I think it was sometime in December. And they finally were like, they had pushed it back, and I think they realized they had done that enough times that you
can't keep putting us on the back burner, guys. You got to get us our stuff.
Exactly. So they finally gave us a date, and they stuck to that. And it was in December, and it got all the way up to this date. And they said, hey, you know, there's a truck. It's one truck. It's filled with everything. It'll show up. It's headed there now. And they gave us like their track. They never actually gave us a tracking number, but they gave us updates on where this truck was. And said, hey, it'll be there 11:30 tonight. We stayed at the store until 11:30, and I think we called probably, you know, 30 minutes after that.
Midnight or whatever.
Yeah, probably around midnight. And we're like, hey, we haven't seen it. Just wondering if you have any updates.
We're all up here to like unload this our entire brand.
Yes. Keep in mind, we have $60,000 invested in products at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nothing we brought it up.
It is a big portion of what we had invested, or what our loan went to in the first place.
Because keep in mind, everybody, you know, this is day one stuff. Like the Triad has, you know, been open for how long? Like 2 months. Yeah, right. And it's like, you know, we're all excited about this. It's a massive part of this whole thing going, and like, okay, cool. This is going to be a big boost for us. Something that we can be excited about. Like we can continue to kind of go. And it's like, okay, cool. It's going to be here. So
again, the 60,000 was only the first half of the order too. We owed the second half after they delivered it.
Yeah. So keep in mind, $120,000 order for a brand new business.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Terrifying to say the least.
So some night in December, couldn't tell you the date, midnight, we finally call them and are trying to get updates on where this truck is at, and they come clean and say they haven't even ordered the raw ingredients to make our products yet.
They don't even have the stuff to make it.
I'm glad Vincent was on that call and not me. I would have not handled that well.
You can imagine our shock.
Yeah. We've stayed up at this store for an extra 3 hours.
What are
at
you
that
doing
point.
at this point? I love I love that the lie went all the way to tracking the truck. The truck didn't exist.
They literally, it'll show up. It's on its way. Show up at 11:30. Like
he's like, I'm gonna have to tell these guys.
You are deep into this lie.
Deep.
Like I'm gonna. Interesting.
I can't even imagine.
I can't either.
It's like all the way until like, come on, man. Again, not giving advice. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like all the way you got tracking. Like, oh, the truck is going to be there. You know, the truck just took a left in Nashville. It's going to be there. Like, what are we? What?
So.
Not the way to do it.
We were in a situation where, we had invested.
You screwed us.
Yeah.
Like
we have a business loan to begin with. And, a lot of it has gone into opening up the doors of the store. And a lot of it has obviously gone to starting the brand as well. And that money they have it.
Yeah.
We wired the money.
Yeah.
You have the money. And we're at the point where we've invested this amount of money. They're going to make the products, but who knows when that's going to show up?
Yeah, they obviously have the capacity to lie.
Yes. So it was one of those where we still imagined that they would get us the products. So we still anticipated that, but we were just under the impression that we had no idea when we were getting them. We might be out of business before you guys get us our product. So we started kind of racking our brain of, clearly we can't just pressure them into getting us our products. And we started going over all these different options that we had.
Scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we called our lawyer at the time. Of
course.
I haven't had to talk to a lawyer for actual business reasons, in like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, that one, we had to do that real early on. So
just go ahead and scratch that off the new business bingo.
Yeah, we had a conversation with him. He was very helpful. He gave us all our options, and what we kind of
option one, sue the shit out of them.
that was kind of the only one.
Yeah.
Just which route are we going to take to do that?
You're right.
So we ended up sitting on a call, and it was, again, Chad, Vincent, and I, and we're all in our early 20s at this point in time, talking with an entire conference room for this manufacturing facility of anywhere between 30 and 60-year-olds that have been in, they're seasoned veterans. And we had to tell them, hey, we're going to sue you if you don't get us our products.
You just killed our business.
Exactly. And that was definitely a kind of looking back, very cool thing to kind of be a part of, but it was, you could tell
that's easy to say in retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely. But man, they could tell they were talking to younger guys, and they were trying to take advantage of that of hey, I think I know what's going on. This is the situation. We're like, no, you're not listening to us. And we had to really put our foot down.
Yeah.
And so what we came to, it was kind of cool. It honestly wasn't even a negotiation at that point, because we had the grounds to actually sue them, because they had verbally agreed to deliver products by November 1st. And they said the day that they, as soon as they were a day late on that, we had the grounds to sue.
Yep.
Exactly. Obviously, there's maybe some wiggle room on that, but the leverage helped us enough to say, hey, here's what we're going to do. Is you're going to, because our minimums for every single product were 500. We were running out of cash flow quickly. So we owed that second $60,000 for all those products as soon as they had 500 of each thing made. And that was almost all about what we had left. So as soon as we paid that, it was
to a company you don't trust.
Exactly. To a company we don't trust. But luckily we didn't have to pay that until I got there.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, we still do have $60,000 sitting here that we're gonna owe, but maybe we can make that work. So we essentially said we essentially laid out the rules to them. It's like shaking on the phone, like telling these guys.
Don't know
that. But essentially we said, hey, you're going to get us every single product that we ordered at 250 units, not 500, which is a great situation to be in. We could have not moved I don't think we could have moved 500 each.
We couldn't have gotten, like, I say that level of manufacturing as we're talking about this company literally doing the worst thing possible.
Yeah.
But it's like, we wouldn't have been able to find somebody who was willing to do 250 that way.
Yeah. No, there's not really not GMP certified facilities that really do that.
It's just not worth their time.
Right.
It's not worth the VAT space. It's not worth the manufacturing space.
Exactly. Finding 500 is actually pretty lucky sometimes. So we said, hey, you're going to make 250 of every single product and you're going to have it to it by this date. And if either of those things aren't done, we're suing you.
Yeah.
And they, okay, guys, what we see, I'm going to take a guess here that you guys are, this or that. And they tried to guess the situation. And like, it's like, no, again, you're
Don't
not
mess with me right now, man.
Yeah. Like, again, we're kind of all or nothing right now. So it's like either this works or we're going under. So why not, you know? Was I think the kind of the nice thing, we had nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah.
So, that was the
literally wasn't a truck. They hadn't even ordered the raw material. There's nothing. Not even close.
We didn't really call them out on that. That was I think had enough.
Made. Yeah.
They
stole business?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't
Surprise.
know. Yeah. There was absolutely
Let's call them
no
up.
way.
Get them on. Ryan, you want to patch them in? See if they're available.
But yeah, we that was definitely one of the toughest situations that we've had to go through.
It's as tough as you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're a new company and a big part of it is like deciding to manufacture your own line of supplements as well. And you're like, okay, cool. I mean, imagine, when you're writing, essentially, I know it was going to be done in two different things, but you're writing a check for $60,000, which is going to be $120,000. Your worst nightmare probably doesn't include them not even ordering the things to make them.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We were like,
them being late, them looking weird, them tasting bad.
Not even step one.
Yeah. Step one.
I thought we were almost done. Yeah, but it was definitely a situation that, man, I actually like one of my favorite quotes. I think it's Andrew Jackson, that every problem is an opportunity in disguise. That if legitimately they would have even got us our products on time at 500 units each, we potentially would have run out of cash flow before we were able to move through those products.
Yep.
And that's what was happening, is they were, again, delaying the point in time where we were even able to start selling our products and making the money back that we had invested. And we were getting to the point where it's like, as soon as we get these, we're going to be out of money as soon as we get them.
Yeah. We're going to be nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing.
That is
and to keep in mind, guys, too, like, the store is not busy enough to cover like the loan payment, rent, like wages, like any of this stuff. Like, if the bank account says 0, like, we owe money to things.
I always make the joke of, like, the days that we had. There were some days at Triad where we had no customers, and that was at that point in time.
Yeah,
it was like, I hope we get a customer today,
because we gotta make the loan payment somehow.
Dude, I was actually paying sales tax earlier today, and I typed in my to-do list. I forgot an S at the end of sales, and I was like, it just said sale tax, and I laughed.
Oh yeah, the first year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
The first year, our sale tax. Well, it's funny because, to kind of transition from that to, I think, one of the things that I talk about a lot, I know we've brought up the interview process a lot too, but I tell people all the time when I'm interviewing them is like, they're almost at a disadvantage, but it's a thing that it's not their fault. But I tell people all the time, I was like, you are at a disadvantage because what you know and what you have seen is a busy Triad. You only see the you, not to say that they will, and nobody has, but it's like there's the opportunity there to take it for granted of like, oh, people just show up. People just show up because they weren't there for the days people didn't show up.
And that's what I saw at Supplement Superstores. Is like the store's just busy. They just show up.
Yeah, we could just open one of these.
Yeah, that was our mistake.
Right. Yeah, young and naive. But yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things where it's like you can take it for granted the fact that like, oh no, there was days where imagine no one coming to Quail. Imagine a day where no one went to Quail.
Yeah, I feel like Ryan will give us a good perspective on this. Can you imagine a day at Quail where not a single customer walks in?
Is there snow outside?
No.
Very nice.
It's 75 and sunny.
I'll give you this. Maybe the UPS guy comes by. Yep, that's it.
To see if you have any packages to pick up. Because we weren't ordering
what
anything.
A sad moment.
Yeah, I can't even fathom what that would be.
Yeah. Could you imagine 2 hours without somebody coming in?
Not even.
Yeah. Right. But that's the thing is it's like, you know, I think we even get a bit of that. I think that's what's kind of nice about new stores, right? I love when people work at new stores. I'd say new stores as if we have more than one new store. But like I think Preston has a really good appreciation for what it's like to be around when it's not busy, to appreciate the busyness, right? Like we never have struggled in Norman by any stretch of the imagination from a business standpoint. But there are days that we are, you know, compared to what we were when we first opened, you know, almost 2 years ago, our average now, not to boast, but our average is about 8 times what we saw at the very beginning. And it's like, we're doing 8 times more business than we were, you know, the first couple weeks that we were open, the first couple months, whatever, that we were open in Norman. And so I think Preston, I shouldn't say think, because I know, because we've talked about it. Preston has this huge appreciation for like, I know what it's like to grind to like this extent to like get this store to where it is. Like we've done the things, we've built the relationships, we've done X, Y, and Z. We followed the playbook to get us there. But I remember the days when we only saw, you know, 10 customers.
You see how much effort it truly takes to get to that point too. Like how many sample events have we done since the store is opened, and that equates to this roughly this amount of sales in a day. That's how much effort. That's how many days have, you know, combined the three of us woken up at 3 or 4 in the morning to do a sample event that starts at 5.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is it's like, you know, Preston one time figured out like how many sample events we do like a year or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it was something like we do like 385 sample events a year or something like that. Yeah. Like it's equivalent to more than one a day. Like if you were to break it down that way, super interesting. But again, it is like, what is the difference between how do you get a store from 10 customers a day to 50 customers a day to 100 customers a day? And it's like, bro, I can tell you there's some grinding in there. There's some times that, I think, again, we couldn't walk into a meeting and ask somebody like, raise your hand if you've never had to do a 5 a.m. like a sample event or a 5 a.m. class or something like that. And it's like, you know, even in like personal experience or like others around, it's like, you know, we've had people do 17 6 a.m. workouts just to get the people who own the gym comfortable enough with us to allow us to come and sample. And it's like, bro, that's what it takes.
Who did that?
I don't want to talk about it. I think it was Preston.
Thomas is bragging about himself.
I am not. No. I didn't even mention myself. I'm doing better. I was a little boastful last time.
You did. I wanted to call you out because you did a good job. I'll brag on Thomas.
But that's the thing is like I don't bring myself up in that situation because I can point to Ryan and I can point to Preston and I can point to Anthony. I can point to Kaylin. My God, like how many sample events does she do? And it's like one of those things where it's like, you can point to every single person in the room and they've got the same story, right? Like that story applies to me and I know it well because it's me, but like that applies to everyone. Every single person here has grinded, you know, like I think one thing, you're going to brag on me. I'm going to brag on you for a second. One thing that I greatly appreciate about you is the fact that you understand that obviously this is your company. You own Triad and Define Nutrition, right? You understand, excuse me. You understand that everyone has monetarily, emotionally, physically, time invested in this company. Nobody doesn't have ownership. Nobody lacks ownership. Nobody has like, I can't look at anybody and be like, hey, Ryan, you ever have an opportunity to make more money than you do now? 100%, right? We just talked about mine. You can talk to anybody. Preston, same way. Like, especially like working at his mom's law firm, he'd be making double the money that he makes now, right? So I love that you understand that you are not the only person who is monetarily invested in this company. All of us have. And that's the thing like we talk about all the time is everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. Because just like when we all decided to, you know, like when we decided that we weren't going to get paid, everybody's going to work second jobs. We live that today in a different form. We look at everybody because we have people who are exceptionally qualified to go do whatever they want to do, right? We don't like, for most people, and this is why they deal with the struggles of like having to explain to their family and friends that like they're going to go work for a supplement store that don't, the people who don't shop with us.
Because they see a lot. They see the potential that we see.
Absolutely. Like any one of our employees right now could absolutely go work a job that is like on paper more prestigious than what we offer, right? That is like such an important thing. Shout out to Andrew Aguirre because he made a post about this today, but it is culture over everything. And I think having an owner like yourself who understands and appreciates that, like, we've had people on shift get offered 6-figure salaries to leave the company and they've said no. They have said no because like they want to do this. And it's like, your understanding of that and appreciation of that is that it's like, oh, you guys are, you know, maybe it's my name on the loan, but it's like, but all of you guys have sacrificed money to be here.
Well, I think a big thing for me is I took close to, if not the exact same amount of ownership at our time at S2 at Supplement Superstores, is when we were working at a supplement store that neither of us owned and weren't super close with the people that did own it, is we took as much ownership in that and transferring that over to Triad. I think a big thing for me was I understood the ownership that I took in both. And when
you know what it's like to be on one side and on the other side.
Yeah. I think another big aspect to that is that when Chad and Vincent were around and it was, you know, the three owners, I felt like I had dedicated, you know, I had moved states, dedicated my entire life. I did not have, a life outside of Triad for several years. And it was, man, I put so much of my life, I put all of my life into this that it was, I think that caused room for some conflict with Chad and Vincent when decisions were being made and I wasn't, I was in the minority and was getting outvoted on certain things happening.
That's a tough thing, right?
That it was, things were happening with the company that I've put my entire life into to watch things happen that I didn't think were right for it was extremely tough, and I didn't handle it super well. And I think what ended up, and this was probably actually the hardest thing that I ever had to do, is come to terms with this of understanding that these two guys have put just as much as I have into it. And that's what finally kind of helped me gain some perspective and have an appreciation for them of, man, if we're doing things my way and not their way, then it's two people that the company is going in a direction that they don't think is right. So I think that's really helped me of understanding, man, there really wasn't a whole lot of difference in ownership between those two. And I have to have an appreciation for everybody else that ultimately they put just as much in as I have. And I think those two experiences are really have helped me keep perspective moving forward.
I think, I think this is such an important thing. And I'm saying this is almost like to document it for us in all of our people in our leadership too, is like, no offense to any other company or how anything is ever ran, but, I think to keep culture the way that we want it to be for the long term, I think one of the most important aspects of that is not absence of ownership or high leadership. Absence of those things, I feel like really start to detriment culture quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in a situation at a certain job that I worked where like, you know, I was nothing in the scheme of things, but was a leadership position at where I was. And it was like, I worked there for 3+ years, and the regional manager of that location, or like that oversaw our location, I saw once,
Yeah.
maybe once.
Yeah.
I knew who he was, but I didn't have his phone number or something. Like I didn't really know much about him. And I think, you know, this is something that I don't know if Andrew got this. We're going to say Andrew did not. Andrew Aguero did not get this from somebody. We're going to give him the credit for it. But one of the things that Andrew told me the other day that when him and I were talking that really stuck with me is a photocopy of a photocopy after a while starts to just be blurred mess.
Yep.
Right? You know that old, like, you're in middle school or whatever, and you get the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy of the times however many times over, and it's like this worksheet that's just a smudged mess that you can tell. And it's like, you want to keep culture and you want to keep people appreciating the company and the things that we do the way that we do it. Be a photocopy of you. Be a photocopy of me. Be a photocopy of Ryan. Be a photocopy of anybody that we have now, honestly, in the long term. But it's one of those things where, like, them knowing you and understanding, you know, let's say Anthony, you know, is overseeing multiple triads and something like that. I don't want, and you don't want, and none of us want, our base level employee at whatever store that Anthony is overseeing to be a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of Anthony. Mm-hmm. We want Anthony there. We want Anthony in whatever capacity he can be to be like, nope, here's your source. Yeah. I want, if it's going to be a photocopy, it better be coming from the worksheet book.
So one really cool thing we've got to do as we've hired on and prepared to open up UConn is really put people in the best possible situations and really emphasize strengths, because everyone at the company currently is able to do something better than I am. There is some aspect of the business they are better at. So
yeah, Ryan was telling me earlier that you suck.
Just in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for me to retire.
Hey, who was at meeting on Friday? I was at meeting. Were you at meeting?
I was at meeting.
Yeah. Kevin, were you at meeting or were you at home with the dogs?
I might have slept in.
Sorry, continue.
This was all right. No, we can't move past this.
Sure we
can
can.
Just clarify. Really.
Clarify.
But then you did show up after for something that was...
The food, I think?
Yeah.
What a bum.
You see how I'm treated here.
I in my defense, I did. Kevin was like, do you want me to come to your meeting? And I was like, no.
Yeah, Anthony said the same thing. These are both in the same boat. But yeah, to clarify, it's individual store meetings for Thomas and Anthony to work with their teams, and for me to let them have their times.
Correct, so, I guess.
You guys trying to make me look bad. What were we talking about?
Absent ownership.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, you were talking about how, like, we have everybody's able to do something better than you in, like, certain categories. Everybody has a specialized strength that they're really good at.
Because we're pretty overstaffed right now, because we want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we open up a brand new location. That we don't want brand new employees in every store. Yeah. You know, taking up the majority of the hours of every store.
Yeah, you want to spread leadership. You want to spread newness, all that kind of stuff.
So we've hired on a little bit early to make sure that everybody can go through training, everybody can get comfortable in the store. Also, if we run into any hiccups, you know, or delays with hiring anybody, we're still ahead of schedule. But everybody's so Christian takes his test on September 1st, which is what we were shooting for. So it gives us at least a month for everybody to work. So we have a lot of extra staff. So we're kind of switching around where people are at and putting where everybody's at. So like, we're using everybody's strengths where I don't necessarily have to be the one that is the initial photocopy of everything. I can find individuals that are better at me than certain aspects and highlight them.
Right. And you bring that workbook to each employee and you can photocopy all the biggest strengths.
Exactly. So examples are Kaylin is out doing community outreach because that is a huge strong suit of hers.
Absolutely.
Preston,
knowledge formulation, knowledge most than anything.
Preston, I guess this is more of a for Anthony, but Preston's working his hours at Quail right now because Preston's, the plan is to have him step into management. I say plan, but we're pretty close now.
Just a couple weeks.
But we have him. He's actually working all his stores up at the Quail Springs location as opposed to his home store in Norman. This week, he's working with Anthony because Anthony has just extremely strong management skills. Yeah. So he's going to
runs a tight ship.
He does.
Yeah. Well, that's what we need.
Right. So Preston's doing management training with Anthony. The following week, you guys are flip-flopping. So you'll be at the Quail Springs location as opposed to Norman like you usually are and doing customer service training because, again, and I should emphasize this, that you guys are better at these things than I am. Like Anthony can do management training better than I can. You can do customer service training better than I can. Ryan, we've pushed him. I know we talked about in the last podcast, moving him more over towards just marketing. He has taken more ownership and can do so many aspects of that better than I can. Yeah. I say so many because not all of them.
I'll let you have it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I
gotta have something there, Kev.
That's not much. Thank you.
But let me ask you this though. As an owner though, I know it's tough and I know there's aspects of that. Like, again, I'll give you kudos because I have come to you at times I shouldn't say many because that sounds rude, but I've come to you multiple times and been like, hey, Kevin, the way we've always done this, it ain't cutting it anymore. Or the way that we talk about this, the way that we do that, I know that this is your design or you did this, but we've got to change it, man. We've got to change it as we as we grow. And it's I think that, that's a tough thing for anybody to hear. Hey, by the way that you do this, is or the way that this has been done, maybe it worked great with one store. It's working less great with two stores. It's probably not going to work at all with three stores. And it's kudos to you though, on always being able to kind of take that in stride of cool, understanding that we're always just trying to make the company better. But I think as an owner though, I don't think you want all that responsibility. You don't want to be the best at everything. You don't want to be sitting. Imagine a world where you're sitting at home knowing that, man, it'd be better if I was on shift at Norman right now. You personally, you'd be sitting there man, customers would be getting treated better if I was on shift at Norman.
When I was working 1 to 2 shifts at Norman a week, it was customers would come in and you and Preston would be able to handle them better than I was because you knew them better, because you were there more often and you had more experience, you had more reps, you were in the groove more than I was.
Right. We're mid-season. You were starting out again.
Yeah, I was stumbling sometimes. You guys had to take over. I wasn't doing well with customers.
But it's one of those things where it's again, and this is not an offensive way to you at all, because you're obviously great and know what you're doing and done so much to get us where we are. It's laid the groundwork, but it's man, without the strength of everybody, the innovation at some point stops with your ability to innovate. And that's not what you want as a company. You don't want one person being the person to innovate. You want to look at 10 people and be you're innovating in this realm. You're innovating in this realm. You're innovating in this realm. That's how we get to be the best, right? That's how we talk about it all the time, but I say focus on one thing, but we focus on being the best supplement store that we can be, right? And we focus on being the best business version of our business as we can be. And it's that's such a big part of it, is constantly innovating, constantly improving, constantly. It is so much easier for 10 people to look at all of the details. For me to just look at the details of maybe an HR's perspective, because I handle a decent amount of our HR stuff, or a customer service perspective. I can just focus on that. And those are the things I'm strong. Those are some of my strong suits. I can look at those and be cool, we need to change this. We need to change this. We need to improve this. We need to work on this. I can focus my energy on that. If I was only able to give 10% of my energy to that, because I had to give other percent of my energy to formulations. Like, I know ingredients and I've been doing this for a long time, but like, it's no secret that it's not my goal to be sitting on the pedestal of like doing the formulations for Define. I see the formulations, I'm like, oh, cool, sweet, I'll try it, whatever. That's great. But it's not my strong suit. And the same thing for Preston, where it's like Preston's, not to say it's not a strong suit, but like, I don't think he wants to be sitting like making HR decisions or like infrastructure decisions or like, how do we do better at, like, it's funny because we're getting to a point where it's like, hey, how do we get better at communicating important dates and times? For a long time, for almost 7 years, word of mouth meetings was enough. Mm-hmm. And now we're realizing with a boatload of new people and a bunch of information that's coming at them faster than they know how to handle, turns out dates and times kind of get lost in that mix, right? And so it's like, okay, cool. Now we have to implement this. We need to do this where we have like, we're going to send out important dates and times so that people can reference back to it and know for a fact when something's happening. Or it's like, handling products in this or whatever different thing that we've done. But it's like, we constantly have to be doing that as we grow. And it's like, I can focus on those things and Ryan can focus on marketing and social media and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, Ryan, you don't even have to answer this because I know the answer, but it's like, imagine, trying to focus on social media while also trying to like implement all the changes that the company needed to make, as well as like doing customer service training and like, formulating Define. Like, no thanks, right? And it's like, that's too much. And that's too much for one person. So it's like you start getting these specialized, talented people in these certain areas. And it's like, you're going to take that area further than I could. And you're going to take that area further than I could. And it's like, you get a culmination of that. And then it's like, you start seeing our new employees come out being trained individually by different people for like different things. And it's like, whoa, yeah, we're pumping out badasses. Like, what is going on? This is awesome.
Yeah. Two things. Full disclosure, Ryan is probably actually better at everything on social media. I had to think about it. And I think today's the day.
And it gets admitted. Congratulations, Ryan.
Number 2.
You want a drink?
Not today.
Also, full disclosure, because obviously one of your strong suits is implementing systems and working with systems with employees. And you come to me, there's certain things, there's certain systems that we set in place based off of 3 employees. And you come to me and say, hey, this doesn't exactly work with 13. Yeah. And full disclosure, I have about 5 or 10 minutes where I hate you.
Oh, I know. I hear it in your voice.
I figured you knew. Yeah. Because it's one of those things where I put a lot of time and effort setting up that system in the first place, and it worked. It's worked really well for a period of time. But ultimately, once I'm able to again kind of come to terms with it, I'm just like, okay, like obviously you're not trying to do anything detrimental to the company. Right. You're trying to improve it. Is okay. Let's take a step back. Let's take away those feelings of pride that I have with the system that's currently in place and look at the system that he's proposing and truly look at, is this better? And can we transition to it smoothly? Yeah. We've put a lot of those in and they've all worked out pretty well. Payroll being a big one.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a good story.
No, definitely. Yeah. We implemented a change in payroll essentially of just like, we weren't running behind. So anybody who runs payroll, I won't bore anybody, but anybody who runs payroll, we weren't running behind. You were getting paid for the day before. Like we paid on Friday, you got paid for that Thursday. And anybody who's ever had to run payroll for any amount of people at all just cringed, right? And it's like, I get, very nice. Even Alyssa gave me a text the other day and was like, because Alyssa runs, is the person who does our payroll and runs like the administrative stuff. But, she texted me the other day and she was like, hey, with all of these new people, because the biggest thing is like, you have to be perfect. Like if you run it for the day before, you have to be perfect. You can't have any mistakes because you don't have time to adjust it. Right. Like now we can run payroll a week prior to it actually being paid out. And if it's like, oh, hey, by the way, I forgot to, as the manager of Norman, I forgot to put in 25 hours for, Christian. She can be like, oh, well, that would have been a bummer. And she can add 25 hours to it and she can make those adjustments to make it work. And it's like, she sent me a text the other day that was like, I would have gone, I don't know if I'd been able to do it. Like there's just not enough time. Like you have to have it done so quickly in order to get it to pay out at the right time. And so, you know, I think it's one of those things that I think I appreciate that, you know, her and I appreciate you too, but it's like, you know, it takes a village. And that's the point is it's like, it takes all of us trying to implement and fix and improve things where it's like I feel like you've gotten to a point, even though you do get frustrated at me, where like you've gotten to a point where you're like, Thomas is putting a good amount of his effort and a good amount of his time, and I trust him to be looking at these things and not changing things just to change them, but like you can with anybody. Ryan's a good example. How much, like, you know, of course you have to transition somebody into that position, just like you've transitioned me at times into that position. But it's like with Ryan, it's like you have to slowly, okay, here, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this now, you're in charge of this now, you're in charge of this now. And you start slowly adding. And at some point you're just like, oh, dude, I just trust you.
Yeah.
I trust you on like what needs to happen here. So like it truly does take a village. And I think for you, you've done a good job of like trusting and understanding that, you know, these are all people with like good intentions trying to improve what the company is. So
yeah. Definitely in a cool moment I think I've talked about before where it's like directly, I don't do a whole lot anymore. Yeah. It's mostly just coordinating and
what a bum.
What?
Oh, nothing. I coughed. I said, what a bum. You said you don't do anything anymore.
I definitely heard one of them and I was just confused.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I've had a couple drinks.
Drunk? I think I got a little bit drunk last time.
Oh, I definitely did. Well, we were drinking much stronger whiskey last time. With that
360, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 360, 380 proof or something.
This Michter's has been good.
I do like it.
Shout out to Jance, owns the wine barrel in Edmond, 164th and Rockwell. Super cool dude. You go in there, remembers your name, have a huge conversation with him. I get in trouble with Alyssa every time I go in because I get stuck in there. But he does that with, like, I'll sit in there and every single person that walks in the door, he'll know them by first name.
That's cool.
He'll have recommendations for them. Hey, got that stuff you were asking about. It's in the bag.
Yeah, that's why you want to go there.
Exactly.
That's what we talked about last time.
Yeah. Best liquor store I've ever been in. Wine barrel.
Yeah, that's awesome. With all of this being said, Ryan has now a whiteboard over there, so where he can write us messages that he needs to. And he just said, you idiots went over 2 hours. So it's probably time to wrap this up. So again, guys, just to kind of keep in mind, like you're not going to hurt our feelings. Like we want to hear feedback. We want to hear criticism. We want to hear compliments. We want to hear kind of all of that stuff. But you know, I really appreciate anybody who listened to the last one and is going to listen to this one. I think we went over some cool stuff and some interesting stuff, told some fun stories and some not so fun stories, but if
you made it through, you know, the whole last podcast and 2 hours into this one, congrats. Thank you for making it this far.
If you I tell you what, this will be good. If you've made it all the way through this podcast to the 2 hour mark, you'll be able to come into Norman and I'll give you an Unsuccessful Entrepreneur podcast sticker with my face on it. Anybody who doesn't listen all the way through won't know that I'm just giving them out for free.
But they got to say the code word. What's the code word?
Man, pink lady apples are the best. So that's what I want to hear.
No, they're not.
Oh, they all did. 2 hours. We're about to start all over. We're not going to get into the Apple conversation, but with all of this being said, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Kevin, I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is Unsuccessful Entrepreneur Podcast, episode 2.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.